Another tide affair in the Big Irish Derby. My name is Mark. Let's talk rugby. It was Leinster who produced the first moment of any real danger in this one. It had a nice box kick from James Gibson Park. Keenan wins the contest of the ball, and then that puts Leinster on the front foot. But then Munster managed to wrap Leinster up in the tackle and turn the ball over in the maul. Great work there from Tom Ahern. Munster then strikes shortly after that. Daly claims a high ball. Zebo steps Ringrose, who shot up in defence. Ball goes out to Nash on the wing. He puts it back inside to Frisch, who offloads out of the tackle to Casey to score in the corner. And what a try that was. A sweeping move from Munster and testament to the vast improvements that they made to their attack through the whole of last season. Just seeing it develop through that, through that campaign really was great to see. And, it's the kind of thing, if you're kind of into rugby in the way that I am, just being able to see game on game and through the months as well last year, how it come on, and this is the kind of stuff you expect from them now. Crowley then converts from the touchline for 7-0. Leinster then lose Ross Byrne to injury, and he's replaced by Frawley. So that battle maybe we were looking at for, the two potential starting 10s for Ireland. For my money, even before this game, Crowley is definitely the man in possession of that 10 jersey now that Johnny Sexton has retired. And I think, Ross Byrne, potentially, he's got a target on his back in terms of people looking for his spot on the bench. And one of those, potentially Frawley, but, I think he's a lot to prove if he is to put his hand up for that. But Munster then, they're back on attack. This one from the back of the scrum. Crowley makes a great break. It's recycled. Then Byrne gets within about a metre of the line. Archer goes, but then he gets held up over the line. Munster, though, you feel they're right on it now. Like, they seem to have all the momentum with them. That could very easily have resulted in a try there as well. Doris then gets pinged for taking out the 9. And Crowley makes it 10-0 from straight in front. Leinster then, begin to find something where they win a penalty as Archer is popped up in the scrum. And that was a big penalty for Leinster. It not only set the kind of the expectation in the scrum, I felt, for most of the rest of the game, it also just gave them some kind of platform to build on, because Munster really were just completely dominating for the period before that. And then they show a little bit of attacking intent as well off the back of that, but then forward pass and sees a promising move break down in the Munster 22. But at least Leinster, they're beginning to find their feet a little bit in the game. They're then applying pressure close to that Munster line. Scannell picks up a yellow card, and basically he was on the wrong side as Leinster were driving up the line towards that Munster try line. Leinster then go to the corner from the penalty. Line-out goes a little bit awry as the ball kind of pops out the side. I'm not sure exactly what happened. It looked like maybe, it looked like James Ryan had actually caught it, and maybe there was a little early drive from Munster, but whatever happened, ball is loose anyway. And from here then, what was it? Oh yeah, Leinster then go off their feet and they give a penalty away. And there must have been some kind of back shock, because they immediately get marched 10 metres forward for the penalty for Munster as well. And then Munster then, they go and attack from a line out. And just before that, there was an excellent box kick from Casey that forced an error from Jimmy O'Brien. It was just kind of the bounce of the ball, and O'Brien kind of knocked it forward, but also into touch. So given the way that the scrum was going, is not surprised that Munster opted for the line out. But then aggressive defence from Leinster, and Tyburn throws an offload to nobody, just trying to keep that ball alive. James Gibson Park, though, he pounces on it, he kicks it downfield and then wins the foot race to the ball, scoops it up and goes over to score. Frawley converts and it's 10-7. And, Munster kind of, I felt like if they had been a little bit more patient with it, they were just trying to, Leinster were putting on pressure, but Munster maybe at that stage could have slowed the ball down and maybe set up for a box kick or something, but they were trying to find gaps in that Leinster defence, and they did a lot in the game, but I thought just that period there probably would have done, with maybe a slightly different tactic and forcing Leinster a little bit further back, but hindsight and all that. Conan then wins a penalty at the breakdown. Leinster, it's kickable, but they decide to go to the corner. Ahern almost steals the line out, but knocks it on. Scrum to Leinster in a decent position. They win a free kick, go quickly from that, but then Byrne with a lovely strip in the tackle. Excellent defence from Munster. And, Munster's attack was looking good, but that defence as well was particularly good as well this evening. Leinster, though, they come again. Nice wraparound from Frawley, and for once in the game, Leinster are finding a little bit of space. Sebo not releasing in the tackle, and he complains about the penalty, but I thought it was fair enough. And it felt like he was slowing the ball down when Leinster maybe had numbers out wide, so maybe just an old head giving away a penalty at the right time. Leinster then go to the corner from that penalty, go to the maul. It's going forward, and then Sheehan gets a tap on the back from Jameson Gibson Park. He darts off, did this side, and then a little bit of footwork, but also power, goes over Frawley and somebody else. Crowley and somebody else attempting to tackle him, but that little bit of footwork meant that they weren't quite set, and he was able to get over to score. Frawley then converts to put Leinster 14-10 ahead. Archer then pinged for not rolling away. Leinster decide to go up to the line. They then spread it off the line out, looking for a chink in that Munster defence, but the defence holds them out, and it's 14-10 at the break. Leinster leading, but Munster had certainly the better start to the game. I thought Munster looked much more fluid, especially in that first quarter. Leinster worked their way back into the game, but still not completely clicking. There was a lot of errors from them in attack and a lot of kind of missed opportunities as well, where it looked like they created space, but then a poor pass or a knock on or wherever, would just see the move break down. Munster then into the second half, they win a scrum penalty early on. They go up the line and they attack, but then Furlong forces a knock on, which is a big hit on Gavin Coombs. Not very often, you see Coombs kind of knock you on in that position, because normally he's very secure when carrying the ball. Leinster then the break on the left with Porter there, and it felt like he did eventually give the ball to Jimmy O'Brien, but it felt like he could have given the ball a little bit earlier, because Leinster had two players out there, but O'Brien then steps back inside. Crowley does really well to get over the ball, and he wins the penalty for Munster. Really great defence there. Penalty then is moved 10 metres forward because James Gibson Park has thrown the ball away. Munster then attack from that line out. Leinster get pinged. Leinster were pinged at the ruck, and then Munster go up the line again, and they've got another chance of attack, but doesn't kind of work out for them. And then Jameson Gibson Park, Leinster have a penalty. He goes for a quick tap, and then they get another penalty. Barron with a deliberate knock on, and Leinster go up the line. Then they work it to within about 5 metres, but then it's Tyke Furlong's turn to knock on under pressure as he was carrying, and then Munster cleared through Conor Murray, who's now on at 9. Leinster, though, they come again, but again, that Munster defence, I think of the Irish sides, is probably the best, certainly in the top two. Hodnick gets over the ball to win a penalty. Munster then, they're Now they have a bit of momentum. They're coming forward. They're finding space again. Crowley, Nash and Zebo to the fore. Leinster scrambled, just about holding him out. There was times when, Leinster just about got a player there to stop a half break turning into a complete break that maybe would have ended in a try. The ball then comes out of the side of a ruck. Doris gets there first, turned over. Then Coombs not on his feet and gives away a penalty that Frawley then he kicks Leinster up the line, and Leinster work it to the edge of that Munster 22. And then Leinster finally produce a bit of accuracy in attack. Some, not amazing phases, but they were getting them just in position. And then Jameson gives Park gives a long bouncing pass out to Larmour. He goes inside of Daly and then steps Zebo and goes over to score in the corner. In fairness to Zebo, he was down with cramp a minute or two earlier, and he went off straight after this. So, that probably had something to do with the fact that he was stepped there. But take nothing away from the finish from Larmour. It's the kind of thing that we expect from him. Really, is that footwork and being able to finish in tight positions as well. Frawley converts from out wide, and it's 21-13. Munster then they look to respond, but they knock on in the Leinster 22, and then they concede a scrum penalty. Thought that was a big moment in the game there, because if Munster had been able to score straight away, then all the pressure is on Leinster for the final kind of whatever it was, 10 minutes or so of the game. Leinster then they'll get pinged for playing the 9, and it's a Munster penalty. Crowley puts the penalty over, but it just about got over because it was kind of going to the right, and then it hits the post and goes over, but they all count. So he maybe kind of wiped a little bit of sweat off his brow, but it was still a good penalty at the end of the day. So 21-16 there. Munster then get a penalty at the restart. McCarthy is offside. There's a little bit of kind of handbags after that as well. But then Munster, they got a chance to build from their own 10-metre line. Leinster defence, though, pushes them back. But then Conor Murray, which is a lovely break down the left, showed great pace, the kind of pace that I haven't seen from him in a long time. And, in fairness to Conor Murray, over the last kind of season and into this season as well, he's really kind of reinvented himself, I feel like, because he definitely, in my mind at least, dropped way down the list of the pecking order for 9s in Ireland, but he was fully deserved of his place in the World Cup squad, and this kind of thing shows you why. Just that quick thinking, but gets right into the 22 and then almost offloads in only for I think it was Daly, but then Larmour just about puts in a hit to put him over the line, and just enough to kind of make it a scrappy offload from there. And from here then, it's kind of finely balanced between the two teams, really. And Leinster, the defence then manages to push Munster out of their 22, and then Doris, he gets in to turn it over, and then I think Munster then give away a penalty at the breakdown. Leinster then they go field this time, and now they're on the Munster line, and that was a great thing about the last kind of 10 minutes or so of this game. It's just how many swings there were in the momentum between these two. Just two teams really fighting for that victory, and neither wanting to take anything less. And that's, as a Leinster fan and as an Irish rugby fan, that's what I want to see. I don't want to see Leinster trashing Munster or trashing any of the other Irish provinces. I want to see them just belting the crap out of each other, and this is what I enjoy, is knowing that that the teams are at kind of close to at least the height of their powers when they're meeting each other, and it's not kind of a gimme the way it had been for Leinster for too long in my mind. But back to the game. So as I said, Leinster are now on the Munster line. Boyle, he goes close, but then Byrne gets over the ball and wins a penalty. Great to see him back at that, because I haven't seen that. Didn't really see it from him in the quarterfinal of the World Cup. I thought that, New Zealand handled him really well. They actually had pretty much had somebody targeting him to make sure he couldn't. And then even when we saw him last week as well, not really doing it. But in this game, he's starting to get back to that level of just a huge threat at the breakdown. So then Munster from the penalty to go up the line and, thinking, is it going to be one more attack, or are they just going to protect the losing bonus point? So, this is, maybe previous Munster teams would have taken the losing bonus point and been pragmatic about it, but this is a different kind of Munster team. So they decided they're going to attack. They do get pushed back into their own 22. They're then going through the phases in their 22, but then finally they knock on. Full-time score then is 21-16 to Leinster. But I think in terms of overall performance, probably Munster were the better of the two sides. And I don't think many Leinster fans would disagree with me on that. Obviously there are going to be some one-eyed Leinster fans who'll say that I'm talking crap, but I feel that Munster probably were, on the balance of the game, the better of the two teams. Now, let's have a look at the stats, and then we'll talk about kind of more individual performances after that as well. Hopefully the stats are some way up to date, because, again, URC stats not that great recently in terms of timing after the game, but I'm just having a quick look down. Yeah, it looks reasonable for full-time stats. So we're going to start with attack. So 3 tries to 1 for Leinster. So if they had gone over there right at the end, it would have been a bonus point try as well. So not only would they have denied Munster the losing bonus point, but they would have got an extra point themselves. So that that penalty that Byrne won was basically worth 2 match points in terms of the difference between these two teams. Possession then was 50-50, and as I said, it was kind of swinging between the two teams. Clean breaks then, 10 for Leinster, 7 for Munster. Easily the best clean break of the game. I think there was Conor Murray's one down the wing, even though there was like a slip from Keenan in there as well. Most of it was his work, and obviously those that actually put him out on the wing in the first place. Defenders beaten then, 15 from Leinster, 12 from Munster. Offloads, 6 from Leinster, 3 from Munster. Unfortunately for Munster, one of those was the Byrne one that led to the Gibson Park try. And again, I kind of talk about that a lot, is that offloads just for the sake of, moving the ball away from the point of contact are very dangerous, because they can lead to situations like that, or they can lead to just you losing possession in the first place. And sometimes it's better just to hold on to the ball and try and slow it down and rebuild. And in that instance, I think it probably would have been better. On to defence end, territory, 55% for Leinster, 45% for Munster. I thought Leinster did well, especially in the second half when Munster were, threatening to really come back at them hard, to play the game in the Munster half and kind of keep play down there as well, using kicks and that kind of thing, and then just being a bit tighter on the defence as well. The defence wasn't great in the first half, but it vastly improved in the second half, and that really helped them there. Number of tackles then, 150 for Leinster, 134 for Munster. Missed tackles, 12-15. Tackle success, 93 for Leinster and 90 for Munster. 93 for Leinster, like both are really good defensive performances, because again, pass mark is 85-87 for the URC. That's where you're going to see most defenses being. So to get into the 90s is really good. But 93 for Leinster, Leinster's defence, we're going to look at probably defence actually this week in the stats, so we'll probably see a little bit more on that. But the defence isn't always that great. especially first up tackles. We saw as well with Ringrose missed a number of first up tackles because he has that license to shoot out of the line. But against a team, that attacks the way Munster do, very close to that line, it means that that's often going to leave gaps, and that happened tonight. But the scramble for Leinster is excellent. But I felt with Munster as well. Munster have developed that in their game too. Previously, even last season, I didn't see that great a scramble from Munster. And, Leinster, certainly of the Irish teams, have had the best scramble defence for a while. But you could see it in the Munster one as well. It's another step that's bringing them closer to Leinster in terms of the kind of, on a consistent basis rather than just kind of one-off games. So that's great to see as well, is that the advancement in Munster, and you hope as a Leinster fan that that's going to drive Leinster to improve as well. But yeah, Leinster's tackling success, 93%, excellent. Munster down 90%. You got to give a lot of credit to them too. They held Leinster out in that period just before half time. A lot of time Leinster, that's where they kind of kill teams off, where the game is kind of close. They've come back, they've gone 14-10 ahead. Generally, they would get in position, they would score again to make it either 19 or 21-10 at the break, and suddenly the game has a whole different complexion. And then early in the second half, then it's kind of a 1-2 from Leinster, right? They hit you, they score right before half time, and then they come out in the second half and they hit you again, and suddenly the game is over. But Munster's defence really, especially at the end of that, the end of both halves really, one to deny Leinster that try to go further ahead, and then right at the end then to deny them the bonus point try as well. Turnovers 1, then 6 to Leinster, 5 for Munster. Leinster, Doris won at least 2 for them, maybe more as well. On to kicking then, kicks retained, 2 from Leinster, 3 from Munster. I thought that Munster's kicking strategy was probably the better of the two. Certainly the distance they're getting on the kick in terms of giving their chasers a real chance to get there showed, I think, in those numbers as well. Even though it's only 1 extra kick retained in a game like this, it can make the difference. Then kicking success, ignore, it's a nothing stat. Penalties conceded then, 10 for Leinster and 9 for Munster. So I think it's the second game in a row that Leinster have conceded 10 penalties and come out on the winning side. So penalty count for me, for them, it's definitely something they're going to have to work on, is especially when you think that a lot of Munster's penalties that they conceded came in the scrum. So that's obviously an area that they need to work on. But Leinster giving 10 penalties away, and only one of those was, I'm pretty sure only one of those was in the scrum. That scrum at the start of the second half. So that's 9 penalties in other areas where they've definitely got to improve the discipline, because when it comes to kind of the sharp end of the season, and if they're in kind of quarterfinals or semi-finals or wherever, or even potentially making finals, that kind of thing is, potentially going to cost you a game. So definitely something to work on, but there's a long way to go in the season. Now, let's talk about kind of more individual and unit performances, as it were. So first off, breakdown was absolutely super competitive, and I thought both sets of second rows got through a mountain of work. You had Klein and kind of Ryan doing kind of the donkey work, if you like, but hitting lots of rucks, and both, making those hard carries as well. And then you had McCarthy with great impact from Leinster. Byrne, as I said, was that huge threat at the breakdown, but also got through a mountain of work as well. So both second rows, I think, come out with lots of credit from this. In terms of the battles of the nines, then, I thought, for me, Casey shaded it. I know Gibson Park got a try, and, in the second half as well, he was part of driving Leinster forward, and that great pass for the Larmer try. But still, for me, I thought Casey kind of shaded, because I thought his kicking was better. Gibson Park, he's known to have an excellent box kick, but I thought that Casey actually did it better for him, and it's something that Casey has worked on in his game, and it's great to see him improving like that as well. No, I'm not saying Gibson Park had a poor game. I'm just saying that Casey slightly shaded the battle between those two. Then the battle of the tens that we were expecting to see was obviously between Byrne and Crowley, but it ended up being Frawley and Crowley. I thought Crowley was the better of the two, but you can see that Frawley does have the potential. But the problem with him is he's kind of he's one of those players that's so versatile that it's going to be hard for him to nail down a starting position, because he's always a better option to have on the bench because where he can cover. So he's going to move around too much for me to be a realistic option, I think, at 10 for a while, especially with, well, if Harry Byrne can stay fit, because that guy, I'm not sure what's gone on him. Excuse me, I'm not sure what's going on with him with fitness. But he, every time a chance comes up, like, you know, Ross Byrne, his brother now is injured, so he's potentially got a chance to stake a claim now in the team. But I would be, you know, amazed if he doesn't get injured in that period where he's got a chance to shine. So we'll see what happens there. But anyway, back to this. Yeah, I thought that that Crowley, you can see it, like he has, like defensively, I thought he was excellent. He's not afraid to like really attack that line and, you know, carry hard himself and be a threat with ball in hand, which kind of sits the defense down a little bit. And then just his passing range as well, and his pass selection is excellent. He was putting people through gaps, and you can see like that he's an integral part as well of how Munster are attacking at the moment. You know, they've got a really good attacking system, I feel, that's really bedded in now, but he just makes it that bit better. Kind of just similar to the way that Sexton did it, you know, for Leinster and for Ireland, in that the system is good, but just the quality of the player then brings it that step further. And I think he's got that now. And, you know, I think in terms of the battle here today, whether Byrne would have played the full match or not, I think that Crowley probably would have been the 10 that stood out anyway. Then in terms of like the other players, two players I thought that stood out for me in the back rows were Conan for Leinster. I thought probably his best game for Leinster in a long time. And, you know, with like Van der Fleer has been kind of quiet, not really like flash. Doris did really well with a few you know, turnovers and stuff, and he's kind of more similar to James Ryan, really head down and get the work done and not really stand out that much, other than those moments when you see him you know, winning turnovers and stuff like that. For Munster, I thought Hodnett was probably the pick of their guys. Ahern, I thought, had a good game. Coombs, you know, he got a couple of turnovers. He's been actually in good form this season without, you know, the flashness of getting the tries and stuff. But still, you know, he had a decent game, but probably certainly not his best game this season, I felt, from him. There's a couple of kind of, as I said, that knock on and the carry and stuff like that. But not a bad game either. You know, this game, it's the kind of thing, right? If Munster win, one of those guys is there for, you know, include Crowley in as well for player of the match. So you can't kind of detract from the performance too much just because they lost a tight game. And then just a word, like, just plenty of players I could mention, like Frisch and Nash, etc. But a player who, you know, I felt deserved the mention was Zebo as well. You know, last season was completely a write-off for him. You know, he had that kind of dream of going back to Munster and putting in, you know, a really good season and forcing his way into the reckoning for the Rugby World Cup. Didn't work out for him. He made 3 starts or something last year, so complete write-off of his season. But he looked really good, and he looks trimmer as well. So he's obviously worked on his fitness too. but he was a real threat coming from full back, coming into the line, running some really good lines and being able to hold his depth as well and not overrunning passes, which kind of made it a lot easier for players to put him through holes. And, you know, hopefully it was just cramp that he went off with, and it's not one of these where he's just had a great game and now he's going to be out for a few weeks. So hopefully, you know, we're going to see him back and for Munster in the next game, because he's a player, I think, who deserves to have a run of games and to be able to show what he can do. But I think the big takeaway from this, for me at least, is that, you know, these are two teams who are in good form, probably not top form yet, but certainly in good form, and are going to be thereabouts towards the end of the season if they can keep this going.